Well, the search goes on for the ideal podcast format. I mean, if only you could see what's going on the other side of the camera. Pretty jerry-rigged. Bushwhacked, you might say. I'm in fact being blinded right now by a stage light that is doing irreparable damage to my retinas. And why? Because it's all for the greater good. Why? Because me talking about literature is really, really important, right? That's what I would like to believe. And you know what? I do believe it in my heart. How's everybody doing? How are we doing today? I'm not drinking coffee right now. I'm not drinking coffee. So the search goes on for a beverage that is going to substitute coffee for a while. And matcha seems to be a pretty decent one, actually. A little bit of sugar in there. I see why the fellas are drinking it. I do. Hey, listen, I'm just one of the guys at the end of the day. And I might not wear a tiny little crop top and barrel jeans, but I can be as performative as the next guy if I need to be. All right. I'm going to talk about 3 or 4 books that I've been reading recently. I've been on a real nonfiction kick, not by choice. I mean, a little bit by choice, but nonfiction is not what I prefer, but I'm trying to clear out a lot of the nonfiction recommendations that I received in my TBR list back in 2020 because I'm sick of looking at them, so we're going to get rid of them. How to Win Friends and Influence People, huh? I don't know, man. Kind of a manipulative title, but hey, it's pretty solid. It's written in like the 1920s. Dale Carnegie. I thought he was related to the Carnegies, big like financial family. But he's not. He actually changed the spelling of his name to match that family for more prestige. He mentions them quite a bit in the book, right? Pretty solid, though. A lot of it is, you know what, guys? Is a lot of what he's saying, be considerate of other people. Talk to them about them. Don't be manipulative if you're giving praise to somebody. Be genuine. Like, find something about the person, even people you don't like, that you genuinely respect. And then tell them about it. And, you know, it goes a long way towards winning friends or convincing them to do something that you'd like to do. And he uses a lot of examples of minor inconveniences in your life. I mean, if I'm gonna sum up this book, it's an ounce of honey is worth 10 ounces of vinegar, or what is it? You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, and a pound of prevention is worth 10 pounds of cure. Is what it's not. It's the first one. Is if I were gonna sum up this book with a little idiom. Okay, 10 pounds of honey, man, it's too much. That's a Costco membership. 10 pounds of honey is better than the cure. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying with this book, more or less, right? Be nice to people, consider it, yada yada. It works. Hey, I implemented some of the things. I was working on like my home the other day. Had to go to the hardware store. Had to buy some things, right? And I was just like, listen, I'm not entirely sure if this is the right thing, so I might have to come back and return it. I'm not sure how the return policy is in this location. So I like walked up to the lady, and I was just like, interested. Like, you just like, be interested. Be genuine in your interest. And I was like, hey, did it hurt when you got those tattoos on like your... She had tattoos on her fingers. And she was like, no, not really. I actually did them myself. I was like, oh, really? Like, stick and poke? She was like, yeah, like, this is kind of cool. Dude, actually, this is a tip. Thanks, Dale Carnegie. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Here's a paraphrased quote from it that I liked. He said, basically, he doesn't know any author that doesn't have a genuine interest in human beings. right? Apparently, he's postulating there's not a lot of authors that are like complete misanthropes, which I don't know if it's entirely true, right? You definitely have that. Look at H.P. Lovecraft. That guy hated a lot of people in some pretty problematic ways. But then again, the characters in H.P. Lovecraft's stories are kind of cheeks, right? Cheeks, bro. I'm trying to watch my language. Okay. This is not alcohol. I wish it was. They're not very good. So it kind of reflects that maybe HPL obviously he didn't like people very much. A real shut-in, right? But his characters kind of suffer for it, I think, you know? There's other ones like that, too. But anyway, that's a tangent. That's an aside. Dale Carnegie's suggesting that you got to be somewhat interested in people. And what I'm saying by that is, I'm talking to this individual at like the hardware store, this lady behind the counter, about her tattoos on her fingers. Did they hurt? You know, stick and poke, all this. And she's like, no, I actually did them myself. I use like pencil lead and conditioner. And I was aware that pencil lead is used for stick and poke, like kind of prison style tattoos sometimes. But I didn't realize that you use like conditioner with it. I didn't know that. And I was like, that's cool. And honestly, this is good for being an author because then I'm a very curious author. Maybe not the most creative author. I'll admit that about myself. Some of my stuff's a little derivative. Okay. All right. Fair enough. But I'm very curious about how things work in the world and why people behave the way they do. And that's why I like writing. I would say that's the main driver for me. And so just hearing that, I was like, oh, I'm curious. I'm going to look that up. Like, how do you use like hair conditioner with pencil lead? Interesting. So that's cool. And then so we were talking a little bit, and then I was like, hey, I don't know if this is like the exact thing I need but can I just bring it back right away and she was like, oh yeah, for sure, bring it back. We'll do an exchange for you. So it works. How to win friends, influence people. It works. Just be nice, care about people. Think about yourself less. I have a little beef. One of my beefs with how to win friends and influence people is that he's using a lot of things, and I was like, this is some really good advice, unless you are already a very people-pleasing person. And actually, maybe don't read this book. If you are a person who's a real people-pleaser, doesn't really like getting in trouble, has a real problem with confrontation, maybe struggles with boundaries in that kind of way, How to Win Friends and Influence People might not be the book for you at this particular moment, because it's all about making people like you, right? And sometimes there are people who want too much for people to like them, and they're not comfortable with confrontation. Otherwise, it's a good book. I give it 7.5 thumbs up out of 10. If you are that kind of person, by the way, non-confrontational, people pleaser, doesn't like getting in trouble or rocking the boat, needs people to like them, is very much not comfortable with people not liking them, I have the book for you that I also just read in my nonfiction journey, and it's called Boundaries by, who's it by? Henry Cloud and John Townsend. Cloud is kind of a fun name. I like that. I'm going to write Cloud down as a potential name for a character in a story. I like kind of whimsical names like that. Cloud. Fun. That's the book for you, people pleasers. For me, too. I'm a people pleaser as well. It's okay. It's all right. This is therapy, apparently, now. I'm a people pleaser, too. Really pretty solid book. A lot of Christian influence in there. If you're a Christian, you'll plug right into it. If not, he brings in some other stuff, brings in a little Buddhism as well. That's all right, it's okay. But the principles are sound. He just references the Bible quite a bit in there. But if you're not, whatever. If you're not Christian, it's all right. Don't listen to that. It's okay. Hey, I talked about Sinners before, how phenomenal that movie is. That movie's really anti-Christian. I was like, I still like it. It's great. Now I'm recommending a real Christian book. And if you're not Christian, that's okay. That's all right. It's good literature. I always feel weird calling nonfiction literature, which I know is ridiculous, because nonfiction has got to be literature. But I think of lit as like fiction for some reason. And I don't really know why that is. Am I right about that? I'd love to be. But I feel like I'm going to put this right next to this salt lamp here. A little red and orange. Hey, that's not red, that's green. All right? And I'm not colorblind, I promise. That is matcha and salt from the Himalayas. Green and orange. Just like, is there a football team? Is there a sports team that's green and orange? I'll bet there is. Somebody let me know. And I will, gosh, I'll never forget you for helping me in this way. I really won't. And I love that. I love helping. I love big helpers, and I need help. Sometimes I'm talking in this podcast and I'm really new to this, and it feels like my sanity is slowly becoming unraveled, right? It's like one of those spools of wire that you open up and you get it from like Lowe's or something, and it unravels immediately, and you're like, ooh. Or like the weed whacker. You know the weed whacker, like plastic, what do you call that? Whacking wire. I'm going to call it whacking wire. Whacking cord. And it becomes unraveled and you're just like, oh, this is going to be brutal. Sometimes that's how my brain feels when I'm talking to myself for this long. I'm just like, I'm going to lose it. I don't know how people do this professionally. But I'm here for it. Let's go crazy, All right. Boundaries is really, really good. You know what I liked about the book Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend? It gives you a lot of variety of people who maybe aren't the best at setting boundaries for themselves in life, and how that takes different forms and shapes, right? Like I was reading that book and I thought, hey, I think I'm pretty good at setting boundaries in my life. I've been told, hey, Garrett, you're not bad. Like you can put your foot down on things if you need to. And I thought, okay, maybe it's worth listening to the book. But you listen to it and you're like, oh, actually, it just manifests in different ways for different people. And there actually are ways that I definitely could be better about setting boundaries. No doubt about it. I highly recommend it. You know what I really liked in this book? It's a paraphrased quote. He said there's absolutely nothing you can do to control the behavior of other people in a healthy way. All you can do is control your own. So if you're dealing with somebody, and he brings up some really serious situations, alcoholism, right? Other forms of addiction, controlling behavior, manipulative behavior. He's like, you really can't control the behavior of another person. Your loved ones may be addicted to alcohol or some substance, whatever the case may be. Can't change them. He says all you can do is truly tell them, I'm not going to put up with this behavior anymore. You can do whatever you want, but I'm going to remove myself from the situation, or I'm going to do this or that. It's very interesting because addictive behavior is really, he suggests it's a stunted, it's a child within yourself that's been deprived of something, and like a child, you seek that thing through some addiction, right? So he says, for those people who are real people pleasers, he's like, think about it this way. You're actually helping the people in your life that are not respecting your boundaries by establishing boundaries with them, because they will quickly realize that they simply can't keep getting what they want out of you because you're establishing a boundary. And it'll actually help them in the long run, oftentimes. And I think that's nice. I think that's what people who are people pleasers need to hear a lot of the time. Because a lot of those people don't want to hurt other people's feelings. But you're actually helping them. And then he gives a lot of advice to the kinds of people who don't have boundaries, and it manifests in very controlling behavior, very domineering behavior. Very good. Good book overall. I would recommend it. It's nonfiction, right? So it's not the most exciting book ever. I am a firm believer that self-help books, they're not going to change your life. I think that actually the messages in fiction that are more subtly implemented do a better job at like soaking into your consciousness and maybe you acting out those positive, hopefully positive behaviors rather than a self-help book, which just kind of gives you the information and then you can either do it or not, right? I'm a believer that fiction is more effective in that way, but you can't go wrong with reading this one, I think. It's not bad. You guys need some light reading? You need some light reading, or like, hey, there's basically a war going on. I'm kind of off social media right now, so I'm not getting bombarded with incredibly dark information all the time, which is really nice. But I know it's out there. Here's some light reading for you. I'm being sarcastic. I'm talking about The Origins of Totalitarianism by Hannah Arendt. I'm keeping this one brief because it's not light, right? And I don't know how much more we need of that. I thought it was a topical read, so I read it, but I've had it in my TBR for many years. It's interesting. I believe Ms. Arendt was a sociologist, German, American, Jewish sociologist and journalist, I believe. And she lived through Germany. She lived through, I believe, Germany in the 30s. I think she left before everything happened there, right? But I don't know. It's an interesting book. It's not my favorite. Interesting to see how these things happen. I think maybe the most interesting thing about The Origins of Totalitarianism is the differences between the different totalitarian governments. The 20th century was a time where a lot of these governments obviously raised up, mid 20th century, right? Germany, Russia, China, and then later in Cambodia. Interesting time, right? Italy as well, and they're all very similar. They're all totalitarian governments, and she gets into the weeds about what defines one of those. But it's interesting to see like the cultural, as like an anthropologist, the cultural differences that you see within these totalitarian governments, the efficiency of like Germany versus the Russia's Soviet Union differed in its own particular ways. I don't know. It's very kind of bleak. Very bleak. But informative. Maybe it's not a bad read right now, considering some of the worrisome directions that we're seeing this country go. I'm trying to be very diplomatic when I say this. You can give it a read, unless you're just like, I'm sick and tired of this. It's dark all the time, and I don't want to read more of that. And I totally understand. But it's educational. The Origins of Totalitarianism. Oh gosh, what do I give it? I don't know. I don't even want to give it a thumbs out of 10. I don't want to thumb this book at all. Like licking your thumb and turning the pages, of course. Alexandre Dumas. That's who wrote it. The Count of Monte Cristo. Now, I have never read The Three Musketeers, the official version. I read the kids' version, which I remember being a little bit scandalized by that. I remember thinking, wait a minute. I actually don't want to spoil The Three Musketeers, but I remember thinking, these main characters are a little morally ambiguous, which was a little shocking for me as a kid. I was very young when I read that kids version. I thought, I don't know if I can fully get behind these characters. I've always been kind of a maybe straight-laced kind of guy when I was growing up anyway. But I like the idea of it. So I read A Count of Monte Cristo. Very long book, about 40 hours by as the ear flies, if you want to put it that way, on audio. And I very much enjoyed the beginning. It's about a young man, got his whole life ahead of him. Everything seems to be going good. And then a few of his contemporaries, out of jealousy, frame him for a crime that he didn't commit. And he goes away in jail for years and years and meets someone in jail who educates him in the ways of the world and turns his whole life around. And then he gets out and takes vengeance on the people who wronged him. The beginning of this book is really great. I liked it a lot. You know what also I liked about this is Dumas seems to have an extremely, do you want to say penetrative knowledge? Okay, a penetrative knowledge of the economy of the time, early to mid 1800s. Because that is how the Count of Monte Cristo exacts his revenge on his enemies. There's not a lot of duels. There's not a lot of action in the book. It's mostly just him, like, he's so educated now, speaks all the languages, is like perfect at assimilating into any country or community, and he's fabulously wealthy, and so he kind of visits his revenge on his enemies using those means at his disposal. And there's some moments in here that I think are really fun. Loses a little bit of steam. Again, it's a little tough for me to know reading books that are classics like this. And I'm just like, is it because my brain, when I read books that are classics like The Count of Monte Cristo, I always wonder, I'm like, am I getting bored at around the 25-hour mark into listening to a 50-hour book? Am I getting bored because my brain is cottage cheese from watching way too much social media, short form content? Difficult to say. Or is this just kind of a boring story at times? I don't know. I'll let you know when I read Moby Dick, and then we can get to the bottom of it, because I hear that one can be an absolute slog. So we'll find out. Either way, I do feel like it loses a little bit of steam, to the point where at the end of the book, I was like, I guess I'm excited. At the beginning of the book, I was like, I'm so excited to see him take revenge on these people who wronged him and did all these, they got it coming to him. And by the end, I was like, I guess I'm excited, but there's like, those people have like kids now and stuff, and it's just, and then I guess the protagonist kind of goes on the same little arc that I did. So maybe it was intentional. All right, Alexandre Dumas, I see you. Good job. Or I should say, I was trying to think of a French phrase, but I can't. I should say, je ne sais quoi. I should say, what are French words for like really good? Incredible. Maybe. Fantastique. Ouais. Disaster. I don't know. I don't speak French. I don't speak French, I hope there's French people watching this, and then they're just like, as if we needed any more reasons to hate America. Look at this guy. Look at this guy in a robe. Look at this guy in a... As if they would say, look at this guy in a robe, drinking matcha tea, with his bracelets and his little scarf around his neck. The color does not even go with the rest of the robe. Anyway. All right. I love the French, by the way. I do. And there's something about them that I really like. I like, I've been to France a couple times, and I love Paris, and I just like their attitude. I know people say the French have a little bit of an attitude sometimes, especially like Parisians and stuff. I like it. On a French note, I've been to Paris and I've been to Strasbourg, and I like Strasbourg a lot. I've been to the south of France too, though. Nice. There's a town called Easy, close to Nice, sort of in between Nice and Monaco, right on the south of France. And I believe Ernest Hemingway had a little house, a little retreat there. He would go and drink. He was an alcoholic, right? Because he's an author, of course. That's why we're drinking matcha. He would go there and he would write. And I didn't stop in Ez, but I took the train. I took a train through. And I thought, I could die. Maybe when I die, if I die and go to heaven, it'll just be me in Ez, France, with like, I don't know, something to smoke and a little drink, a hot day, just maybe even a little typewriter. I can be a hipster. I've never used that, actually. I've never used a typewriter to write anything. But if you're in Ez, France, writing and being an author, you might kind of need a typewriter at that point. And I would just die and go to heaven, I think. Imagine that. I'm romanticizing a place where I don't live, even though I live in a pretty place. But, I don't know. Just like on the mountainside with the sea. Imagine that. I'd be writing bestsellers too. Just kidding. Hemingway's a better author than me. Probably, but I'm not published yet. So maybe my work will be lauded like Hemingway. You have to be a little delusional to be an author. Never forget that. Because the imposter syndrome is so real. I feel it all the time. I think I'm told pretty consistently by people who have read my work that I'm a good writer. But I always think I'm horrible at this. And that's just a common authoring experience, I think. But I think in the south of France, if I was in Ez with a cigarette and a little bit of gin and soda and a sparkling water and like a cappuccino on a typewriter, ding, that would be it, huh? I would be writing bestsellers like this, like it was nothing, huh? Okay, here's the last book I'm going to talk about. Whoa! Speaking of the south of France. Guys, I feel like the transitions between these books have been like, I didn't even think about this beforehand, but they've been pretty good. They've been pretty good. And I am going to transition again into Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Tell me about F. Scott Fitzgerald, viewers. Let me know. What am I missing? I read The Great Gatsby and I just wasn't super invested. Again, could be the cottage cheese brain. I'm just like totally like a modern author. I don't think so though, because I really enjoy some authors from like the 1920s. So it might just be F. Scott Fitzgerald and I might just be not getting what he's saying. I mean, I understand, of course, I understand The Great Gatsby, and it's an excellent book. It's just not my favorite. And Tender is the Night is kind of the same way. I'm like, okay, I can see like technically this is a good book, for sure. But I'm just not like super engaged in the characters or like, I don't know, what am I missing? What am I missing with F. Scott Fitzgerald? Let me know, because I want to like him. I mean, he's like a big American author, you know? It worries me sometimes. Sometimes when I read like classic literature as an author and I don't really like it very much, I'm just like, do I know how to write? Right? Because I'm like, everyone says this is amazing. And if I don't think it's like that good, or it's just like not for me, I always wonder, it's that imposter syndrome coming back. I'm like, do I not know what good is? And if that's the case, can I not make something good? Because, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like people said they, like contemporary audiences hated Moby Dick. And they loved his like Herman Melville's previous works. But nobody knows those. Like everybody knows Moby Dick. And it took people a long time to be like, wow, that's like absolutely his best one. But I guess like the most people that were reading them didn't love it. Reading Melville's works, didn't love Moby Dick when it came out. So maybe I'm just the most people, that are like reading these books, and I read a classic and think, oh, not Dracula though. That book's incredible. Maybe I'll talk about it a different time. All right, so what stuck with me the most out of this kind of crop of books that I've read recently probably would be from How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm really trying to make a concerted effort to shift my conversations to prioritize the other person. Always. Trying to make that effort. I'm a guy who really likes to just go on, talk and talk and talk. I don't want to say yap because that word is starting to annoy me, right? But I like to talk a lot, and it can be too much. So I'm really going to try and implement that, and because I do genuinely care about other people, and so I want to make that known to them by asking them about themselves. That's a big takeaway for me. Big takeaway for listeners, people who are listening right now. I don't know. I think it's huge to, like Cloud and Townsend say in their book Boundaries. It's just huge to remember that you cannot, without being manipulative or some other toxic trait, you cannot control other people's behavior. They're going to do what they're going to do. But you can control yours. You can control how you react to that. And I think that's beautiful. I learned when I was living in Thailand for some time, and learning a lot about their meditation practices, and how they say nothing is truly personal. People are just acting in their own little world. Even someone cuts you off in traffic and it feels personal, right? Someone even insults you. It feels extremely personal. But more often they're venting an insecurity or some sort of anger or some unresolved issue within themselves on you. And actually, that's them still. I think that's so true. It's hard to maintain that mindset. It's easier said than done, but so much good in life is that way. All right, what I'm going to read next? Well, right now, I'm reading Masters of Chaos, which is a book about the Army Green Berets, the Special Operations Force, Special Forces of the Army. I like a little military nonfiction every now and again, especially when it starts getting warm outside, which it is where I live. So I enjoy that. It helps me. It's sort of a research for some of the action adventure stories that I write as well. And that one's pretty decent. Not the best, but I'll let you know about that in the future. For now, the nonfiction journey continues, but thank you for listening to my podcast. If you stayed all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. And yeah, give me a subscribe if you want. Do people ask for that anymore? Subscribe. I didn't even drink all my matcha. And give me a like. That probably helps. I have zero idea how any of this works. My camera is on top of a cooler that you put food in. So we're doing the best we can. But I do love you guys, as always, for watching. We're connected. We're all connected. Don't forget that. Read to write. And bye-bye. And thanks for listening. Ciao. And I have to pee.